Welcome back to another episode of the Twin Elements podcast, proudly presented by Venture Hunting and Outdoors. If you're like us and passionate about hunting, spearfishing, and many other outdoor-related pursuits, with an eagerness to fast-track your learning, then this podcast is perfect for you. G'day legends and welcome back to another episode of the Twin Elements podcast. I'm joined here today by my brother James Doumtsis, and you're hearing the voice of Ayden. You should be very well used to us now. The only difference is that today we're launching this episode on a Friday, and that is because today's episode of the podcast is a bonus drop, a bonus episode, if you will. We figured that 1 month into the year, on January 31st, 2025, we would just simply check in, say g'day, and sort of check out what everyone's doing in terms of their resolutions. Very much the same as everyone 1 month ago on the 31st December 2024 would have been hopefully making and planning and creating new goals and resolutions and all that type of stuff, as we tend to do. We often hear, new year, new me, and those sorts of things. So we understand that there's obviously a lot of excitement, hope and motivation associated with this time of the year, particularly early on when everyone's got plenty of energy and enthusiasm towards reaching those goals. But we just, wanted to check in, see how everyone's going with those and discuss a few of our own goals and resolutions for 2025.
So the reason we wanted to do this podcast a month in is because according to Google, 80% of news resolutions have been already abandoned come 1st of February. So we thought it was very topical to get you guys back on track, get everything, all your systems back in order, and try and keep your news resolution flame alive and just keep your goals going. So according to Google, once again, the top 10 most common news resolutions were exercise more, lose weight, eat healthier, save more money / spend less, focus on mental health, quit smoking or reduce alcohol, spend more time with friends and family, learn something new, travel more, get organized. So obviously a lot of generic ones there. But what we're going to do is dive into, I guess, how Ayden and I sort of try and prioritize our lives, and especially around news resolutions, just to maximize the likelihood that they're actually going to come to fruition.
So to get started, James and I are going to give a few insights into sort of our daily habits and strategies that we implement on the day-to-day, things that we use to help us achieve our goals. A lot of it comes down to just being incredibly consistent and, replacing bad habits with good habits. Things that we do from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed are incredibly important and almost set down a bit of a sequence as to how often our days are going to play out. And then as we upscale these things, days lead to months, months into the year, and so forth. And that just creates, a lifestyle essentially. A lot of these things that we're going to discuss today are not new. They're very much, being studied. They're very much aware. It's just doing the simple things right more times than not often leads to success, as we hear quite often.
The first one that I want to touch on, I think, is probably the most important, in my opinion, is sleep. So Ayden and I very much prioritize our sleep schedule, getting a good night's sleep, including just like little things like if you're hot, putting the aircon on, having a fan on, those type of things. But it's not until I actually got a Fitbit that tracked my sleep as well, not giving them a plug or anything like that, but just that actually showed how often you sort of were awake in the middle of the night and your different sleep cycles and stuff like that, and how then you can get like a readiness score for the next day. But I find the biggest thing to do with my productiveness, how motivated and willing I am to go to the gym or, do extra things or go out for dinner even, purely comes back to the fact of how well I slept the night before. So I think prioritizing and really trying to get that actual 8 hours sleep, because as I've learned, 8 hours sleep lying in your bed very much doesn't mean 8 hours of actual sleep. Long is dead, the sort of, I'll sleep when I'm dead sort of slogan, I guess, like for longevity and everything like that, that myth has really been uplifted, I guess, and sort of thrown out the window, showing that, prioritizing your sleep if you want to have the most fulfilled and especially the longest life possible is really needs to be a priority. And for me personally, I feel like a lot of especially around productivity throughout the day, stems from how well I slept the night before.
Yeah, I think rest and recovery is so underrated in this day and age. We all obviously work and grind hard throughout the day at work and then come home and exercise. And, for those that have kids, obviously run around doing all of that as well as errands and things like that. Like, it feels like we never really stop. I think being able to prioritize the moments up to sleeping are incredibly important, but then also the moments that we do wake up the following morning. And that brings me to like our next point, which is, for me, I'm really enjoying like drinking so much water and hydrating. This again is something that I think cognitively I notice the most, and just being able to go and do the exercise and things that I want to do as well. When I notice that I can have a little bit less sleep, or I can, not eat the best foods for that day and do like a run or an exercise fasted. But I know that if I'm dehydrated, it's just my muscles ache, I cramp more, all these sorts of things. So one of the strategies that I implement immediately, like first thing to start my day, is that I will basically wake up, go and grab 1 liter of water approximately, and for the next 15 minutes to half an hour, I'm drinking that, just sipping on it, not trying to chug the whole thing, obviously, because I did find that for me, obviously you wake up and you feel like, I'm going to go and get into my morning routine of a coffee, but you're not even really tired. You shouldn't be tired. You've literally just woken up. And I think doing that just instantly dehydrates you. And like for me, making a coffee straight away was massive. Like, it was a convenience thing. I'd wake up, have a coffee, that would kickstart my routine. Whereas I've found personally over the last year or so, by just pushing that back an hour and having a coffee after an hour, after I've actually, seen daylight, I like to actually go outside, have a glass of water, have that bottle of water, interact with my dog, interact with my, kids, for example, if you had kids, whatever it may be. Just seeing a bit of sunlight and starting with a bit of water seems to be something that I've really enjoyed, as well as water between meals, like throughout the day, just being something that sort of quenches my hunger. It gives me a bit of satiety, if you will, and just keeps that hunger suppressed for a little bit longer, which reduces my urge to go and snack a lot between meals, which obviously then keeps your calories down and just keeps you on the track of eating good meals throughout the day rather than just snacking on rubbish.
Another thing surrounding hydration, a bit of a guilty plug here for Atlas Wild. I've been using their Regenerate, obviously, for a long time whilst out hunting, but started using a lot more commonly, just drinking it when I was at the gym. And I've found, I don't know if it was the magnesium in it, but certainly like leading back into my sleep quality has gotten a lot better, but also just purely around like muscle soreness and muscle fatigue, like being able to back it up, whether it be on the mountain or in the gym the next day. Like I know that just increasing the amount of electrolytes that I was having in my diet and replacing those salts, like especially obviously now in summer, like, it doesn't take much to start sweating. And really, unless you're like prioritizing that, you're not going to be replenishing those electrolytes. So yeah, I mean, if you want to check out the Atlas Wild stuff, definitely recommend their Regenerate. Their the flavors that they've got are absolutely insane. Like the grape for me is my go-to. We obviously have the 10% discount code if you use TWIN10 as well. That is TWIN 10, the number at checkout. So that'll get you 10% off your next order. But certainly increasing the amount of electrolytes I've been having has certainly helped, not only with my sleep quality, but also just in all ways, hydration and activity.
That sort of feeds on to just nutrition and nourishment. A massive point here is just eating quality foods, particularly like your whole foods, steak, eggs, vegetables, fruits, basically unprocessed foods. As hunters and people who tend to spend a lot of time outdoors, this should be even easier for us. If you grow your own garden, like hats off to you, that's incredible. But yeah, red meat and fish are excellent sources of protein. Having a good amount of protein in your diet directly relates to muscle like building as well as repair of muscles once you are exercising and things like that. So, a lot of us, I think, have gone down the fad of like, and the traits of, carbs are bad for you, they just make you put on weight and stuff like that. But there are such differences and varieties in carbs. And like, if people can get one takeaway from like the whole foods and carbs in this little section here, it's just like healthy carbs such as potatoes and sweet potato, brown rice, if you really do want to add in rice and things like that, are great sources of fuel, especially if you're training a lot. Like, you do need carbs for energy. if you do want to avoid certain carbs, like I would be avoiding, like your white rice and a lot of your breads and things like that. There's probably nothing worse for you than just, a loaf of white bread in the morning. Like if you can supplement that with some eggs, half an avo, salt, pepper, chuck in a bit of bacon there if you do want that. But honestly, like some eggs and avo is just such a lean, healthy, like it's got plenty of fat, it's got the protein of the eggs. It's an amazing way to kickstart your morning. And again, like as hunters and fishermen, there's no excuse for not, having amazing meat unless you're a terrible hunter or a terrible fisher.
The only excuse is that, you're not able to be as successful, whether it be, in a boat or off the shore or out with a bow or rifle as you'd like to be. But yeah, I mean, there's no excuse. And especially nowadays when like minces and everything like that are so accessible, and like the amount of things that you can do like at home, whether it be making venison bacon or jerky or sausages or, slow cooks. Obviously, yeah, like I mentioned, mince in our household is king. Like we pretty much mince a whole deer except for the backstrap just because there's so many different recipes. But yeah, I know I personally, like I probably about 2 years ago switched to, or maybe a bit longer now, predominantly just eating protein. And it's, to be honest, I feel better on it, like the mental clarity and everything like that. Like it's a lot easier for me in terms of weight management, I find as well, because my biggest thing, obviously, probably being European background, like you eat to when you're full and then you just keep going. And I find that eating a high protein meals and predominantly meat just helps with that, in the sense that I don't get that, like those like when my guts are grumbling and, those hungry periods in the day where I'm going and looking for snacks, which generally snacks are like sort of the bad stuff that we eat, like Tim Tams and chocolate and all that stuff. Whereas like I know that I'm very content if I just eat, like some, like even if it's like a mince wrap or some steaks or anything really, a slow cooked stew or anything like that. I know that I'm going to be right, and even can like skip meals and miss meals, not on purpose, just because if I'm busy and working or out hunting and stuff like that, and the protein in there will like carry you through. Because the way that it all works is like red meat, especially, like the clearance time out of your guts is about 8 hours. Obviously less for white meats like chicken and fish, where it's only like 4 hours, but then carbs, it's only like 2 to 3 hours. So like if you're eating a really high carb diet, like firstly, it's a lot easier to get those calories in there because it tastes delicious and they're generally more calorie dense. But also the thing is you get hungry quicker. So that's where often like I mainly eat bacon, eggs, avocado for breakfast in different forms, whether it be like omelette, scrambled eggs, just plain fried or whatever. But it's purely just so if I eat Wheat Bix or cereal or something like that, like if I have that at 7 a.m., I'm starving by 10. And so it's easier for me to just eat a lot of protein because then I don't get that sort of need and desire. And then it's just easier to manage like, your calorie intakes and that type of thing when you're just not hungry. Like there's no drive to go and find a snack.
It's interesting as well because diet is nearly more important, in my opinion, than exercising, which will probably be our next point. But just to touch on diet, like I honestly find that, meal prepping for me when I was living away and so busy was just amazing. Like it's funny because a lot of people say, oh, but don't you just get sick of those meals? And for me, like I honestly, sounds a bit cliche, but think of my body as a car or, an engine, and it needs the best food or oil or water, whatever you sort of want to use the analogy with. And the way that, as you do with your diesel ute, you give it diesel and fill it up and it performs. For me, it was like making sure my body had the prerequisite fuel so that I could go and do the activities that I want to do at a high enough standard. So for me, I would honestly meal prep. Every Sunday I'd cook a big meal. Might have been a bolognese or a curry or a stir fry, something with some carbs, but like stacked with heaps of protein. And a lot of the time it was, slow cooked venison or some sort of mince with beef or buffalo or whatnot. So I would do that. And then honestly, I would just alternate between lunch and dinners. And this is particularly effective, I think, if you are trying to potentially cut a little bit of weight or lose a bit of weight is one of your resolutions. And you find that, you just get stumped on cooking, what to cook of an evening, and it's so time consuming cooking really good meals all the time. Cook a bolognese on a Sunday afternoon before you go to work for the week and just have that every meal for the rest of the week. And I guarantee you, if you can cook a nice bolognese, you will happily eat it for lunch. It's so much better than going down to the shops and buying a sandwich that's coated in a massive sourdough piece of bread or something like that, that gives you one tiny piece of ham or whatever, a little bit of chicken that's often crumbed, with a little bit of salad, leaf litter and whatnot, and you're paying $10 to $15 for it. It's like, save your money, do the meal prep. Yeah, it might be a little bit boring, but you know exactly what's in it. If you can half cook and you're a half decent cook, it's going to have flavor. It's going to be good for you. But even the portion control of meal prepping is really, really valued. And for me, again, like I'm not someone, fortunately, because I train so much and eat quite well. I don't necessarily I can't remember the last time I weighed myself, for example. But if I know that if I was someone that was trying to cut weight, a lot of people fall into the trap of, and especially being like European, I feel this is, it's so easy for me if I'm not training because of the volume of food, even though it's healthy, that I eat and put on my plate. Like, just because a plate is 10 inches in diameter doesn't mean you have to fill it. You have to like kind of subconsciously go, okay, one piece of chicken or one piece of steak and a little bit of salad or a little bit of veggies is enough for me for dinner if I've done everything right leading up to that. And like even eating that at an earlier time of the day before you go to bed, there's so many factors. And I find that meal prepping, especially when you're doing it in, these small little, takeaway containers or Tupperware, is a really good way of actually portion controlling. And if you're going, I'm feeling really hungry on this and I'm losing weight, maybe you just put the meal quantity or size up slightly so that, because if you are trying to lose weight, you do want to be losing weight through decreased caloric intake. But if you're constantly hungry, then, as James was saying earlier, bump it up and increase the protein. So there's so many options when it comes to your diet. It's just whole foods and eating quality foods is essential.
Before we even talk about exercise, it is 100% diet. Like, you don't get six packs from going to the gym, like flat out. You get six packs, like what you eat in the kitchen and more so like what you eat at snack time. Because at the end of the day, someone that sits in an office, and I see this like bringing back to my Fitbit, like if I go to the gym and then go for a run or, go for a hunt or whatever, like yesterday, Ayden and I went for a bushwalk. Went for a hunt. It was a bushwalk because we didn't shoot anything. But we, we did like nearly 20,000 steps. Whereas the day before, when we're in here recording podcasts and editing hunting films for you guys, like I barely even got like 7,000 steps and I was pretty much sitting on my ass. And then I went to the gym and smashed myself and then went for a run. And then, but like I'd pretty much done all my exercise in an hour and a half. So it's like, that's where for you in an office job or like, it's a role that you're sitting a fair bit, diet is so much more important, but also just purely from a calorie intake point of view. Like if you go for a run, depending on how hilly it is, like if it's flat land, you're only burning like 80 calories. If it's hilly, you're burning 100 calories. You can drink that in like a large chocolate, frappuccino or whatever from Macca's. You're probably going to get, that's probably 500 calories in that. And you could smash that easily and then go on and eat a muffin and then go, you could get 1,000 calories so quickly in just snacking, especially liquid snacks. And that's where like for me, chalky milk used to be my best friend for growing my love handles out. And so that's why like it was a pretty easy one to cut from my life. When I do want to lose weight, I'll just, not drink chalky milk or not drink like high milk density liquids. But what I'm trying to say is like what I try and prioritize, and like I've said, I eat high amounts of meat, but like I try and just eat as much and whatever I want in 3 big meals a day, being breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that can be anything from, like sometimes you're having like a pretty high carb, something like carbonara, which I try and, not do because it generally messes with my guts and I generally get pretty hungry afterwards. But like even just like mince or steaks or anything like that, like I'll try and eat as much as I can in those 3 meals because then it limits what you're going to snack on. And generally speaking, it's the stuff that's you snack on that can actually contribute so much to your calorie intake. Like in the sense of like, I always say to my old man, like a Tim Tam is like 80 calories. So in which case, like every Tim Tam you eat, well, that's a kilometer of running roughly on flat ground that you got to do. It's like, I know people that can smash a whole packet of Tim Tams in an afternoon. Like there's 10 or 12, however many Tim Tams, like kilometers worth of running they need to do. And so it's so much easier to watch what you're putting in your mouth and like go and smash the pavement or, go and lift weights at the gym. And so that's where if you want to lose weight, yes, exercising is obviously going to help, but it's compounding by the fact of what you put in your mouth rather than like how many, steps you're going to do in a day or how far or how much weight you're going to lift, for example.
And to simplify what you're saying there, this is something that like hits home with me because a lot of people say like, oh, you're so disciplined, like you train all the time. And it's like, I find the training easy because I get direct results out of it, like for mental clarity and all those types of things. Like the routine that I've got with fitness is one that I'm loving. For me, my biggest struggle is I'm almost like an addict in the sense of some people are with smoking and drinking and all these other things. When it comes to junk food, I am terrible. Like if I smell a packet of salt and vinegar chips in the house, unsealed, I will go and find it on the top shelf, hidden behind something, open it up and devour every single chip, smash the bag in my mouth and try and like lick the edges. Like that's how obsessed I am over, chips and lollies, especially like those red lollies, snakes, all these sorts of things. So you know what I developed as the best way for portion control and moderation and those types of things? I simply do not buy it. I live with, a partner and say, I do not want you to buy this stuff. And if you do, keep it secret from me. Like I want you to enjoy every great thing that you want like that in life. Because, she can have a block of chocolate or, have a lolly, whereas I can't. Like I am terrible. As I said, it's like an addictive behavior. And I know that and am mature enough to recognize that. So I simply don't buy it. Sure, if I go out for dinner and there's a dessert menu and things like that, and I've worked hard for the week, my priorities and goals and all these things are in check, I'll enjoy that type of stuff. Like I'm not saying deprive yourself of enjoyment. What I'm saying is that to achieve these things, you do have to essentially prioritize certain things. And sometimes it's not what you do, it's what you deny yourself is probably more important. So for example, you can say, what do I have to do to lose weight? But sometimes it's what can't I have to lose weight? And for me, it's like, don't buy lollies, don't buy snacks, don't buy rubbish. Instead of, buying a chocolate bar and saying, oh, I'm a bit snackish and peckish, or having a packet of chips, have a banana, have some fruits, like some nuts. Dates are amazing. Watermelon's amazing. Watermelon, you could eat half a watermelon, and because it's so full of water and just juice, it's not going to be a massive caloric intake. Same as, bananas are a great source of energy, especially if you want to train and you're feeling a little bit peckish. Have a banana. It's a great source of, yes, they do have sugars, but they're natural sugars. They're going to be a lot better for you than, chips and chocolate and lollies and things like we've just discussed.
Now, I've got to talk about exercise, and obviously a lot of, including myself, resolutions generally revolve around exercising more, getting healthier, that type of thing. Ayden and I, being twins, we've cracked into our dirty 30s. And so a lot of my resolutions around exercise actually are probably more leading into longevity. Like I'm not trying to smash out one rep maxes anymore and stuff. I'm more actually thinking, and it's a little bit inspired by my dad in the sense of like, I want to keep training now so that I can keep a base level of fitness so that I'm still able to go and shoot and hunt Dale sheep when I'm like 75 to 80 years old. And so a lot of my exercise and stuff like that and resolutions is mainly just keeping that base level of hunting fitness. But it just depends on what your resolutions are. But it really doesn't take much to keep a base level of fitness. Like we're only talking about, like I try and prioritize like half an hour a day, like every day, which really you look at 24 hours a day, just say you're going to get 8 hours of sleep. That leaves you 16 hours. And I mean, I always love the excuse where people, which we're going to get into next time, at the next point, they go, oh, I don't have time. Well, the first thing I would say to you is go and have a look at your screen time on your phone or your laptop. I don't know if you can do it on TV. But I mean, like if you've got time to watch 5 episodes of a TV series at night for 4 hours or 5 hours, or you've got time to sit on your phone and flick through TikToks and Instagrams and bloody whatever else you look at for 4 or 5 hours of screen time a day, you've got time to go and do half an hour of exercise. And it really doesn't take much. Like the biggest thing that I find is the barrier to entry, which we'll talk about like some tips and tactics with that later on. But like reducing that barrier to entry for me, it's like now I'm in a pretty good routine where I finished work at sort of 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And if I'm not hunting, then I'll generally go for a run or go to the gym. And I've just got that built into my routine now. But the easiest way for me to do that was making it the most convenient way possible. And so for me, I literally found a gym between where I was working at the time and my house to set up this routine. So it's like, all you got to do is just like, I would go to gym in my work clothes half the time, and I just put a pair of runners in the car. And so it's like, you've got to drive past the gym to get to your house. So it's like, just jump out and go and do half an hour. And like, then once you're there, like you've never walked out of the gym or, finished a run and not like being like, oh, that was worth it. You know what I mean? Like you always regret not doing it. But certainly like once you've actually gone and done the deed or whatever you have to do, then yeah, you're always like happy and you're like, oh, I'm glad even if you're feeling shit, then you're always, grateful that you did it.
Personally, I acknowledge you don't have to exercise too much. Like I love it. It's honestly probably my hobby at the moment that I'm really enjoying. But to the point, like as someone that just wants to exercise from home, because personally, I've done it all. I've gone to gyms for long periods of time. I've done, personal training. I've done high intensity, like sport competitions, things like that. I've done long runs. I've done it like now as simple as I carry around 10 to 15 kilo dumbbells, a pair of those, and a little exercise mat that I can lay out anywhere. Like you should have seen me last year in 2024. Towards the tail end of the year, I was literally rocking up to preg testing jobs, would work for the day, and then afterwards I'd do a 20 to 30 minute, high intensity, essentially, short duration workout. And I was finding that was having incredible effects. And what people do, I think they get like, oh, I'll go to gym, and to get results, I've got to go there for hours. And it's like, no, certain people will go there for hours because that's, filling in time of their day, that's their hobby, that's what they want to do. But if you're just doing exercise as a means to lose like weight or to get stronger and do these things, a great way to start and actually just, get it over and done with as such is to lock in and just do like very light body weight exercises, especially working on your core, push-ups, pull-ups, these sort of compound exercises, and just increase the reps and reduce the rest to maximize like your time and efficiency. So for something like this, like please, if anyone's interested by this, reach out and just send me a message, because I can send you 10 exercises that you can do very, very easily and just have on repeat. People have probably seen it on my stories, where I'll just sit there and do basically like an exercise and record it as a time lapse. And in 20 minutes, I'm done. And it's essentially 30 seconds on doing the exercise, no matter how many reps I do. And then the timer goes off, and for 30 seconds, I rest. And as I got stronger and fitter, because trust me, it doesn't sound like much. When you do that with 10 exercises, 3 sets for half an hour, you're dead. Your muscles are burning. When you do like, shoulder press with 10 kilo dumbbells, it's not much. But when you do that straight into, a tiny 30-second rest into an ab workout, your body's burning, your sweat's like dripping down your forehead. And then what I've done as I've got fitter and stronger is reduce that break time. So now I work for 40 seconds and do 20 seconds off, 50 seconds, 10 seconds off. So it varies. And then there are other times, instead of doing, like if you want to then, once you've done that and you've done that for a month or 2 months or whatever, and you're starting to notice these changes in your body and being and attitude when it comes to fitness pretty quick. Like I think people say that, within 2 weeks of exercising, you'll start noticing little change. And then within like a month, your spouse or your partner or whatever might start noticing little changes. And then, in a couple of months of consistent exercise, other people will start commenting on it. And that's when you've already set up the habits and you've already set up, the routine of it all. By the time you hit that point and other people are noticing it, there's no looking back, in my opinion, unless something really happens, like you go away or you get an injury and things like that. And that's where I think people, especially early days, and that's hopefully this isn't going to resonate with anyone now, being like the 31st of January, people will go, I want to get fit. And they go and throw everything at it for a month or a few weeks, and they actually injure themselves, or they actually go too hard and they go, no, this is too hard to achieve this resolution. So the biggest thing that I urge people to do is just have like a consistent approach to it, to the point where like you're not killing yourself. Because sure, that will come if you are truly loving it and enjoying it. Like a lot of these workouts and things that I'm doing now, and some of the bigger runs that I'm doing, I do genuinely feel like I'm going to pass out some workouts. There are some workouts that I'm like, I can't finish this. And then you go and finish it. And the mental strength and clarity that you get from that, for me personally, is amazing. But I can't lie to you guys and pretend that, there are times I go and do a 20-minute workout and it's the hardest thing of my day. And it's just an easy, it should be an easy workout. It's something that the day before I did super easily. And then for whatever reason, I haven't slept well enough. I'm a bit tired. My head's elsewhere. But just doing it is massive. And similar to what James was saying about exercising and having boots, your shoes in the car, and, making all of these little habits and things just easily achievable is very, very important.
The next big killer of especially productivity, which is a big one for Ayden and I, a lot of our world revolves around, is screen time. So I touched on it before, but screen time is definitely the biggest killer of productivity, and more so just wasted hours in the day, like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Like those things are designed to get you to just hang around and stay on there. And I am guilty of it. Like, it's one of these things where you lose train of thought, or, especially with me, like I'll be exporting a video and I'll be like, oh, I'll just quickly go on Instagram. And anyway, it was only like a 10-minute export, and all of a sudden I look at it and I've been on Instagram for 40 minutes or something like that. And it's just designed to give you that continuous dopamine hit, and just keep you on there and keep you hooked. But honestly, it is the biggest killer. And that's where, like people often, that you'll be running late to things, you'll make excuses that you don't have time for things. And that's honestly because you're just spending way too much time obviously the first tactic, I guess, for dealing with that, like you can do a full reset and delete, all the apps and stuff like that, which I've done, and got rid of Snapchat and Facebook personally. This year is one of my New Year's resolutions because I didn't need them. Obviously, Instagram, from a business point of view, we obviously manage and do a lot of things on socials. But even just limiting that social media to 30 minutes a day. And it sounds silly, but like one tactic that I actually found with Instagram that was really handy was putting it into a folder, like putting Instagram into its own folder, which I like couldn't, it's not like a big icon or anything like that. And it meant that I wasn't like drawn to it as soon as I was like going on another app or looking for something. Like it's sort of a bit more discreet. The other thing which you can do, and just look it up, and I've done as well, is put your phone to grayscale, which just essentially takes like all the color out of your phone. And even that, like it's shown that it decreases your phone use by like 40 minutes, if not more, a day. And yeah, I've really enjoyed doing that too, because it like essentially takes, like I said, all the color out of your phone, which you don't get that sort of, I don't know, that just the dopamine hit from like, it just sort of loses its color really. And so that's one thing that I've definitely found with reducing screen time. But yeah, just prioritizing it, making sure you don't get in that trap. I mean, it is one thing to get home after, a big day or whatnot. But there's so much more rewarding things that you can be doing. Like, I don't know, like just even connecting with your spouse or loved ones or kids, and yeah, for me personally, like just trying to prioritize reading books and stuff more as well, has been one of my resolutions. So just, yeah, trying to get more out of it than just watching some 10-second reel of TikTok or video or whatever that just gives you that hit that you need, but doesn't really offer any actual like substance to your life.
I think you've touched very largely on like phones and mobiles and things that are hard because I agree, like there's something that you have on you all the time. So not only is it like a killer of, your things that you do when you get home from work, but during work, it can obviously distract you. And just like even you notice nowadays when people go out for dinner that they'll put their phone on the table. It's like, piss it off. You don't have to even, put it in between you and your date potentially, or you and your partner, to let them know like, hey, this thing's really important to me. It's on the table. It takes presence in my life. Just, I think pissing them off a lot. And like, this year, one of my like goals is to just like be on my phone for work and then chuck it away. And to be honest, I've actually noticed that it just gives you so much time, and even to a lesser extent, like not particularly phones, but like one of my biggest recommendations in terms of killing screen time and just getting rid of it would be to kill the subscriptions and kill like this doom scrolling. So subscriptions such as Netflix and things like that. Like I know that movies are great of an afternoon or an evening to unwind after a big day of work. But where I think the trouble starts is that people finish work and they're watching a great series. We've all been there, watch Vikings, Game of Thrones, like these amazing series. Particularly they're even better when you're watching it with someone. But what happens is that you almost live in this real world where all you're doing is wanting to get home and then escape to that fantasy world where you're watching TV. And the issue isn't necessarily being able to unwind for an hour or so at night and watch that and really, a lot of movies and things spark your emotion. Like I love creativity. I love watching movies because they inspire me in, how to make movies and these films that we do here at Twin Elements. But there's like a time and a place. And I think, similar to what James was saying before about like once it's hard unless you've really established like a protocol of including your ex. If you wake up every morning and go, I have to go to work, that's a, non-negotiable, just the same as, we all have to go to work and do our professions and things. One thing you get from this podcast is start taking the mannerisms of like, I have to exercise each day or at least, X amount of times per week. And it's a non-negotiable. It's like, oh, sorry, say it to your spouse. Sorry, love, I actually can't do that. Like, I know I've got to, watch that movie with you later on, but not until I've done this exercise. And if they can't respect you for that, it's just like you've got to set boundaries, especially when they're extremely important, because your mood and like energy levels are only going to increase once you are exercising and doing these things. And if anyone gives you any trouble for trying to exercise instead of watching a movie, especially where you become recumbent and lay down a lot of the time, like it's just a trap. Like, especially if you're doing that straight after work. I understand we all work hard, you're tired, you get home and you think, oh, I'll exercise after this episode. But it's just, they're designed so well to trap you in. It's one of those things that you start watching and then shit, it's 11 o'clock and I've already lost my 8 hours of sleep now because I've got to get up at 5 and blah, blah, blah. They're just these perpetuating cycles, unfortunately. So yeah, my biggest thing would just be with reducing screen time. Try and kill the subscriptions. You'll actually save a little bit of money as well. Venture Hunting Outdoors is Australia's premier hunting retailer. Venture started from a team of passionate hunters with the mission to give Australian hunters the resource they deserve. Through community events, top quality gear, exclusive deals, and expert guidance, Venture is more than a hunting store, it's a community. Check out their incredible megastore in Brisbane today, or head to their website to shop all things hunting and outdoors.
So then leading back into New Year's resolutions. So one thing, and this is a bit of a reassessment, I guess. Firstly, if you're still doing it, you're in the top 20% according to Google, and congratulations for that. But sadly, if you've dropped down into the 80% and you've already finished or stopped your New Year's resolutions, Feb 1st can be a new month resolution. Start again. And what we're trying to set out here is I've got a lot of New Year's resolutions. We're not going to get into mine, but what I always do, and we got taught this at uni, was SMART goals. So I'll jump into the acronym now. Obviously, the S being specific. So clearly define the goal. What did you want to accomplish with your goal? Measurable, which is obviously a big one. So make sure you can track your progress, and how will you actually be tracking your progress? So have this all planned out before you go and tackle one of your New Year's resolutions or goals. Is it actually achievable? And I feel like that's where people sort of fall into a trap with their New Year's resolution. Set goals that are actually realistic and that you can actually complete or attainable. Because I look at people that, and this is no offense meant to be, given, I encourage them, but I look at people that have never done exercise and rarely do exercise, sort of don't have a lot of these healthy traits and habits that we've sort of spoken about. And then, I know personally friends that have jumped into things that are 45 hard challenges and stuff like that, where it's you've got to exercise twice a day, follow a nutrition plan, drink, 4 liters of water, read a book, blah, 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 take progress photos for 75 days. And I take my hat off to people, and if they actually finish it, you are incredible. You are my idol. I really deeply think that you've done an incredible job. But I mean, I know I've tried to prioritize fitness for a long time. And I mean, it's very rare that I'll even do 2 workouts in a day. Ayden's probably the fittest person I've ever met. And even him, most days doesn't do 2 workouts in a day. So prioritizing 2 45-minute workouts in a day and following this nutrition plan and no alcohol and no cheat meals, blah, blah, blah. It's just not set up to be actually achievable. And so that's where if you barely even walk and go to the gym or exercise like that, instead of doing a 75 hard, your goal might literally be just go for a 3-kilometer walk with you and your partner to reconnect with him or her a couple of days a week, which is going to be so much more don't try and shoot for the moon, shoot for something that you can actually achieve, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is set up a platform and build habits that we can do for an improved quality of life for the rest of our life, not just something that we're going to try and smash out in the first 3 weeks of January. And then you're this is actually ridiculous. I haven't slept, I've been doing all this stuff that's crazy. And then you just don't follow through with it. And then, so the R from SMART is relevant. So ensuring that obviously your goals align with what you're trying to accomplish, which, fairly relevant, I guess. And then also setting a time period. So, some of these things may be, I want to do a marathon or half marathon or something like that. Something may be reading more books, reconnecting with friends, save $50,000 for a home deposit. And obviously setting a time limit on those things. So a lot of my ones are weekly or monthly goals, which are sort of just reoccurring, I guess. So it's just trying to accomplish and prioritize having a better life. But yeah, making sure that you can actually measure your goals and they're achievable are really critical to, making sure you actually achieve these New Year's resolutions.
And just to put a lot of this into perspective, I wasn't aware of this SMART goals. Obviously, I wasn't paying attention at uni when James was.
That's why I got better marks.
But for example, I just want to give you guys, a realistic example of this with one of my goals from 2025, which I've sort of started. So, for example, with me, I building off a bit of momentum last year and just starting to sort of run a little bit more, I essentially just said to myself that, I want to run a bit more. I know that if I'm running more physically and mentally, that does a lot for me. And then to try and quantify it and make it measurable, I said, okay, what's, an acceptable amount of days that I'm trying to run? And I said 5 out of 7 is pretty good for me. Like, I'm in a fit point in my life and I prioritize fitness. It's my hobby, as I said. So I quickly did some maths and said, if I just run 5 kilometers 5 times a week, that's 25 kilometers for the week. Times that by 52 weeks in the year, I'm looking at 1,300 kilometers to run in 2025. And I went, oh, that doesn't even sound like that much. And then I kind of like actually thought about it and I was like, 5 times a week running 5Ks is quite a lot. And then, so it doesn't matter. And then I went, but there are days that I'll run more. There are days I won't run. There are days I might get injured, all these types of things. So when I initially saw 1,300 kilometers, I was like, oh, I should be able to do way more than that. But then I just said, I just want to make sure this is achievable and an honest reflection of if I put in that much work, that will probably be more than I've ever run in my life, mind you. So again, I immediately went to the end of every month in my calendar or my work diary that I use with Twin Elements. And I marked in on the 31st or 30th or 28th, if it's like a leap year, and marked in X-1300, basically to say, at the end of January, I've run 200 kilometers out of 1,300. And knowing that as a bare minimum, if I want to be on track, I should be running 109 kilometers every month. 109 times 12 is roughly 1,300 to achieve this goal that I've set out. So this is just an example of, that SMART goals. And, with this, I can say that I'm well and truly on track. Like I've really been loving the running into this January period. I am about to actually clock up 200. And I just find that by doing that, and this is, to be honest, like I've had a pretty relaxed month in terms of I've been on a lot of holidays, so I've had a lot more time, but I know that I've got a month of guiding with spotting safaris coming up. March is going to be busy, in April with the rut and things like that. So I've accounted that I'm not going to run as much. So I'm trying to just get a bit of momentum and, 200 kilometers in January might turn into 50 in April if I'm not hunting or if I'm injured. So it's one of those things like do things that are achievable, but if you do have energy to do more than what you've set out, do it. Like it's helpful. It's going to also push your boundaries and let you know, hey, 200 kilometers in a month is achievable. And suddenly, next year's resolution for me might not be 1,300 kilometers if I can achieve it this year. It might be 2,400. And then you just build on that and you add these incredible amount of layers and skills to yourself as a human being where you go, what my mind perceived as tough and not, something that I was able to achieve years ago is now something that I just take for granted as how easy it is to do. And, 3-4 months ago, a 5-kilometer run was like, I was out of breath, couldn't do it. And now I can go for a 5-kilometer run and talk to the person next to me for the whole trip and be completely fine. I can now do that for a 10-kilometer run. So it just, you really do level up through these processes. But again, using the SMART goals, I did it sort of subconsciously, but it makes total sense to me what James was talking about earlier.
That's where Ayden goes for a 5-kilometer run with me and he's talking my ear off for the first time all day because I've been talking his off and I'm panting my guts out because I'm trying to keep breathing, keep alive. But and that's where for me, like I think it's one of these things, like a lot of this stuff we obviously talk about New Year's resolutions, but what we're trying to get out of this podcast is actually just a better life for you guys. And so that's where for me, I'd rather you set your standards and goals lower, but try and actually achieve them and then build on that, into the future rather than setting these like just ridiculously unrealistic goals where 80% of people quit in a month. And so, take this as a refreshment. Like, let's get back on track and let's like look forward to the next 11 months of the year where, reset your goals if you've already failed and try and actually do something that's more sustainable. Like, don't just quit drinking. Just quit drinking during weekdays and just drink on the weekends. Or, if you want to lose weight, get back on track, come up with a new plan. Obviously, the first one didn't work. So, don't just go into it and, do the same principles again or the same systems again. Like, look at it from a different way and just put those little building blocks and little steps in place. Like one of the, this is, I don't know, free tip, I guess, but one of the best books I have actually listened to and I've listened to so many times now is, I think it's James Clear is the author, but Atomic Habits. Like I tell everyone about it that would be willing to listen to me about it. But it's one of these things that like 0.01% over time compounds into something like beautiful and brilliant. And it's just trying to put these like smallest little interventions into place to maximize sort of, I guess, your happiness in life and your longevity, and just get the most out of this beautiful thing we call life.
So to wrap this podcast up, I'm going to be a little bit cliche and just, there are a few quotes that I, really love from picking up, and there are some that I write down just so if I'm ever unmotivated, I'll make sure I go and read them. It's something I'll often do first thing in the morning. I'll read a quote and it might just shape me or give me a bit of energy for that day ahead. So I'll rattle off two here that I've got. One is super like humbling and just actually like quite a nice little quote. Very, very simple. It just is, everyone you admire was once a beginner. So this sort of for me acts as a bit of a reminder that, if someone asks you a question that you think's a bit silly, just put yourself in their shoes. They're giving it a crack. And this is particularly relevant at this time of the year, especially if you're going to a gym and you notice that there's a massive influx of people at the gym. It's easy to just go, look at all these wankers. They're coming and trying to, train. They're just going to fall away by the time it's March. We're not going to see any of them. They're going to quit all their resolutions as someone that goes to the gym. But instead, if you see someone struggling with a bit of gym gear, go over and help them. Show them an exercise. Be that good person that might actually be the reason why someone sticks to their habit and has a better lifestyle. And a reminder that, whatever success in life, whether it is gym, whether it is, your actual job, everyone was once a beginner who, we now admire. So it's just a lesson in patience and persistence, no matter where you start.
A quote that I admire, I guess, is the decisions we make in our weakest moments is what define us. And so really looking at that in any aspect of life, whether it be essentially just controlling your desires, or whether it be, caloric intake, skipping the gym, going out and instead of, doing work, doing a bit of overtime to make some more money, to save, you go out and have a bender and blow all your money, and then you're obviously hungover the next day so you don't work. All these things in life, and like they come back to, trying to move the needle. It's sort of like what I was saying about atomic habits, but trying to move the needle, even if it's the most minuscule amount every day in the right direction for the lifestyle and life that you want to live. And so, the decisions we make in our weakest moments is what define us. Like I just find the power of that in terms of, just leading on to trying to have the best life and sort of sway my judgment, I guess, when it's often like the things that we shouldn't do or that sort of get us off track, obviously normally the easier decisions to make, and sort of just keeping that clarity and keeping that strength to sort of do what you need to do to be moving in the right directions rather than just sort of, fall off the hill, I guess.
My last one is very, very similar and feeds off that, which like I can relate to, and that is live today in a way that your future self will thank you for tomorrow. And for me, that just emphasizes, similar to what you're saying, like making the right choices now, whether in health, relationships, work, or personal growth that align with the kind of person you aspire to become. And for me, that's like if I say, okay, what things do I hold important and want to have in my life as a 70-year-old? Again, sometimes it's hard to be like, oh, I need to do this and this and this to make sure I'm doing that at 70. Whereas sometimes it's easier to just say, if I want to be 70 and fit, I probably should quit smoking. I probably should quit drinking as much or, have healthier restrictions on that. I probably shouldn't go out every weekend and spend all this money because at some point I'm going to need, healthcare and a house and hopefully some superannuation and all these things that, we need as adults and responsible people. But the biggest thing that I take away from this is just that delayed gratification. And you actually get this a lot. The reason I really like this quote is because I think with hunting, you sort of get this a lot. You do, it's like you hear this buck croaking up on a hill and you can run straight to him and barge on in there, or you can go around, get the wind right, do the long run, get up even earlier before daylight, travel the right way an hour or two before daylight and then be sitting off your scrape rather than wake up a bit late and barge up there and try and get to him. And just that sense of like delayed gratification, the intentionality of trying to set yourself up for long-term success really speaks to me. And whether that's, just asking yourself questions of, this might sound extreme, but like, am I proud of the friendship group that I currently have? If you're hanging around with people, like, this is an easy one for me, because like the people that I ride and die with, whether it's my relationships, friends, family, whatever, if they do not bring benefit to my life, I immediately cut them out. And it's not, there might be some people, and there definitely have been some people that I have had amazing years with at a certain point in my life. But then as I've matured, as I've grown and worked out for me personally what is really important in terms of my identity and who I want to be in the future, those people they're great people. They're just different to me, and they don't align with where I want to be when I am, for example, 70. So, is my exercise levels right now as a 30-year-old acceptable for, me wanting to be a fit father in the future and then a fit grandfather and going on all these extravagant hunts when I'm older? So that delayed gratification is extremely important.
Well, hopefully you guys have got something out of this podcast. Hopefully we've inspired you to get back on track. Like we said, if you're in that 20% that are still chomping at the bit and ticking goals with your New Year's resolutions, to you guys and girls, congratulations. To the guys and girls that lost their way, don't wait another 12 months. Start again, and just use that template that we spoke about with SMART goals. Take a bit of inspiration from Ayden's example with his running, and just sort of, create a new protocol, a new skeleton, new backbone to, just even one resolution to get your life moving in the direction that you want it to be. Because at the end of the day, you want to live the best life you possibly can. And generally that starts with good health.
Just to share a goal of ours for this year, James and I have a combined goal, which we're working towards, and this podcast actually contributes to that. We're going to be very upfront. We wanted to do 50 podcasts this year. Again, 52 weeks of the year, a podcast essentially every week of the year. With a couple of bonus podcasts like that, we obviously think it's achievable. So we just wanted to say a massive thank you to all of you guys who are supporting the launch of the podcast. Without your support, it wouldn't be possible, and we wouldn't be motivated to do it. So again, you guys are helping to keep us accountable and motivated. So we'll wrap up and just remind you also on a few things Twin Elements wise. We are running a 10K follower giveaway over on our Instagram feed. We're currently at 9,900 or so there's probably around 100 followers left. If you can please go on over and make sure that you're following us on there, that would be absolutely amazing. When we hit 10K followers, we're going to be giving away $300 worth of Venture Hunting and Outdoors gift vouchers to one lucky winner. Hopefully they can spend that money just in time for the fallow deer rut and red deer raw and get kitted out with all of the good stuff. That is pinned on our Instagram feed in the top left-hand corner on the Twin Elements feed, Ayden Doumtsis Outdoors and James Doumtsis Outdoors.
You want to win that $300 vouchers, you need to be in the draw. So make sure you bloody steal your wife or husband's phone, steal your kid's phone, jump onto their Instagram, as many accounts as you can. You follow the Venture Hunting Outdoors and also the Twin Elements, and comment to enter into the draw. So best of luck to you guys, but spread the word, get as many people in there and following so we can draw the lucky $300 voucher winner. The next thing, housekeeping wise, is Ayden and I followed Nick Morton in the hills of New South Wales searching for a particularly spectacular buck. So we've got a 5-part series called Fallow Frenzy that will be launching on, first part 1 will be launching on the 12th of February, but the trailer will be launching next week at the 5th of February. So make sure to check that out on our YouTube channel, Twin Elements. Make sure you're subscribed there too, because we do have a few giveaways that will be running across the YouTube in the future. So keep listening to the podcast to stay up to date with all that. But we know that you are going to love this 5-part series. There's so much live action in there. And yeah, it's definitely taken a step in the right direction in terms of camera quality and camera gear. So yeah, we can't wait to get this out to you guys and hear your feedback on that one.
If you've been listening to the podcast, you would have heard us explain over the last coming weeks that we will be attending the Venture Hunting and Outdoors Springwood Store event, which is taking place in Brisbane in Queensland. We were previously advertising the 14th and 15th. That has now been changed to the evening of the 13th, which is a Thursday, so during the week. We just worked with the team at Venture and actually decided that this would be more available for people to come and visit. There are 100 spots available for this sort of meet and greet event, which we're going to be doing on the evening of the 13th now. As I said, it's from 6 to 9 p.m, so just after business close. There will be drinks and nibbles and that type of stuff, as well as some prizes and giveaways. But what we're really excited to be doing is, as James just alluded, we've got that 5-part fallow deer series. We decided to do almost like a VIP screening, which we're going to have as a full feature-length film, which is going to air on the night of the 13th for those that are in attendance. Following that, we're going to have a in-depth question and answer regarding to just general questions, but more so specific to the fallow deer rut and red deer raw. So make sure that if you're in that Brisbane area, you go onto the Venture Hunting website and register today. We want to see you guys there.
Yeah, you'll see they've got it fully set up. It's a very easy click-through link process to jump on and become a VIP. It is a free thing to come to that feature night on the 13th. So all you've got to do is just sign up with your email. Does not cost a single thing, and we'll see you there. But they've limited space-wise to only 100 spots. So yeah, we're a bit concerned how fast this is going to fill up. So make sure to jump on and sign up to the VIP Venture Hunting experience. Another thing on the agenda for Ayden and I is on the 1st of March, we'll be going down to the Flow State Outdoors Expo. So yeah, if you're a hunter, fisherman, outdoorsman, hiker, anything, there's going to be a heap of vendors there, a heap of fun prizes and giveaways. And it's just going to be an awesome outdoor community-based thing. So make sure to head down. This year it's taking place at Wodonga Racecourse and Exhibition Centre, so up on the Victorian-New South Wales border. We've actually jumped in with Flow State to do a Spotter Safaris giveaway valued at $6,000. So to be in the draw for that, you need to purchase an early bird ticket. And then there's plenty of other prizes as well that will be given away on the day to people that have the early bird ticket. So make sure to jump online at the Flow State website as well and purchase your ticket. They've also lined up a heap of awesome chefs and teamed up with Yeti to do a wild game cooking experience that will be going from 5 till 7 p.m. So those tickets are $100 and you'll be absolutely treated to some delicious meals. Ayden, Dad and I already have our tickets. I mentioned and spoke to Wade earlier this week, and he had already said that a lot of the VIP tickets for the dinner had already sold out because they've only got 100 tickets available. So make sure to jump online and purchase your tickets, because I'd hate to see you wanting to purchase one on the night and not get one, because it's going to be an absolute beautiful dining experience. I can't wait.
As always, we really appreciate your support. So if you can continue to subscribe, review and rate this podcast, that would be absolutely amazing. We're going to resume on Monday, the 3rd of February with a fallow deer rut sort of masterclass where James and I dive into that topic. So make sure, sort of following on, if you heard episode 3 where James discussed being rut ready, and we give a few considerations into fallow deer and red deer sort of upcoming hunts. This one is more of a deep dive into the actual biology and nature of the fallow deer rut. We break that down into 3 parts with a pre-rut, peak rut and post-rut sort of discussion, as well as some tips for making sure that everyone's leaving the hills or the flats or whatever it is, the Australian bush, with a fallow deer on the ground for 2025. So as always, thank you very much for your support and listening to this podcast. As I said, this was pretty fun for James and I. It was our first little bonus episode, something that we definitely aren't experts in, but this is just us trying to be more relatable with you guys, give you an insight into who we are as human beings, and hopefully someone out there took something from this and it motivates them to continue with their resolutions. So we appreciate you guys very much.
Thanks, legends. And hopefully, even if we get one person to kickstart their resolutions again from Feb 1st, this podcast will be worth it. So if that's you, send us a message on Instagram and we'd love to hear it. But thank you for now, and we'll see you next time on the Twin Elements podcast.
Catch your legends.